Okay. Um, Om Swastiastu. Okay. Today I would like to presentation about seven material. The seven material there are uh, minimal pairs and beyond. The next material is phonetic similarity and detective distribution, and then free variation, and then neutralization. Uh, the next material is phonology and morphology, and then rules and constraints, and then the last one is phoneme system. And then we go to the first material is minimal pairs and beyond. Minimal pairs and beyond are a pair of words that vary by single sound or phoneme. There's a rule in the term where based on identification of phonemes for which we relate on the two fundamental tools of predictability of assurance and invariance of meanings. If two sounds assure in non-overlapping predictable sets of contexts, and if substituting one for the other does not make a semantic difference, then those two sounds must necessarily be allophones of a single phoneme. On the other hand, if those two sounds can assure the same environment, producing different words, they belong to different phonemes. For example, contact at, in pet, bed, met, it's the same. And then contact EP in ship, deep, tip, or lip, it's same. And then we go to the next material. The next material will be presented by my friends. Okta, time is yours.
I'm sorry, Okta, you still mute.
Sorry. I'm continue. Phonetic similarity. In the vast majority of cases, applying our phoneme test will provide result in keeping with native speakers in DTC. About which sounds belong together very often, as we have seen, output of a single phoneme will not in fact be distinguishable for a native speaker at all without a certain amount of phonetic training. However, there are some cases where sticking to those tests too rigidly can have quite the opposite consequence. One of the best known and most obvious example of this kind in English involves ha and ang. For example, ha appears only before a straight vowel as it had a head and a prehensive, and ang at the end of a syllable, either alone as in rank, hanger, or before a vowel plosive, either ke or ge, as in ring, stinger, finger, and strong. Okay, the next material in Lita, time is yours.
The next material is defective distribution. In the normal case, we would expect some relation of every phoneme in a language to appear in every possible environment, in such as initially, medially, and finally in the word, and also before and after other consonants in the clusters. First, there are a phonetic constraint of a language, which spell out which combination of sounds are possible. In English, only rather few three-consonant clusters are permissible, and the first consonant in the sequence must be sah. Nasal stop in English can cluster only with oral stop sharing and the same place of articulation, or unless the oral stop marks the past tense is a hermit. And then secondly, same phonemes have a detective distribution. They are not only restricted in the combination of consonants they can form, but are simply absent for some position in the word. English h and ng but fall into this category since the former is available only syllable initially and the latter only syllable finally. This because thus defective distribution are mutually exclusive. The English h and ng are in complementary distribution. And then phonemes with detective distribution like these are relatively rare. Sometimes their detectiveness follows are their historical development and is derived historical from a sequence of NK or NG where uh, the nasal assimilated to place of articulation of following consonants. And then the next material will be presented by Okta.
Okay, the next material, free variation. The previous section dealt with exceptions to the criterion of predictability of occurrence to sounds which are in complementary distribution are normally assigned to single phoneme, but where this would conflict with phonetic similarity and with native speaker intuition. It is appropriate to set up to distinct phonemes and seek an alternative explanation for the complementary in terms of detective distributions. The first, we equate complementary distribution to assists to sounds to a single phoneme, and yet a speaker of Scottish English for example, may sometimes produce a typical phone or are in vary and on other assumptions and approximates. The second type of free variation in the converse of the first and potentially more problematic. Here, instead of finding two alphons for a single phoneme in the sums context, violating complementary distribution, we see two sounds which on other criteria belong to different phonemes, failing to make the meaning difference we expect. Sometimes the difference can be explained in geographical terms. For instance, short British English speaker say tomato and North American speaker typically say tomato, producing the same lexical item with constantly different power. Okay, the next material kita
The next material is neutralization. Neutralization is the process in phonology that shows how two distinct phonemes become phonetically the same. The fundamental phonetic difference between the sound is lost at the point of neutralization. Many languages have the process of neutralization in their phonology. The Peugeot linguistic circle called neutralist unit as are phoneme, which normally express the common feature if the sounds involved in neutralization. Here we examined an example for Malayalam, a Dravidian language spoken in India. A dental stop the and the are two distinct phonemes in Malayalam, but the voiceless dental stop the get neutralized, which the voiced sounds in the intervocalic position. Example: Fatham, rheumatics, and Fadam arguments, but the surface phonetic repetition on these two sounds is the same, Fadam. And then the next example is the contracts in all possible positions in the word minimal pair can be found for the and the initially in till and will, medially in neither and matter, finally in lead versus lead, like that. And then the next material will be present by Okta. Okta, time is yours.
Okay, the next material, phonology and morphology. The morphology of a language concerns the generalizations about form and meaning that relate to one another within the language. The phonology of a language concerns the generalizations about the sounds patterns in that language. The first representations like Mary is pre-ways ambiguous for a general American speaker, since it could be Mary, Mary, or Mary. This might in fact be quite appropriate because the three sound the same at the phonetic level, but it would be helpful to have a way of identifying somewhere in the phonology just which is which. Secondly, In some cases that look rather like naturalizations, the archiphony cannot really be invoked. For instance, the English regular plural ending on nouns is marked by a spelling which means more than one thing phonologically in caps shapes, where the final sound in the stem is voiceless. The plural suffix in realis as voiceless as in dog, heads, pens, flowers, dolls, eyes, where the final sound of the stem is voice. The plural suffix is also voice as. Okay, the next material kita will do presentation. Thank is yours.
Okay. The next material is rule and constraints. Mass interaction of phonology and with morphology, the part of linguistics which studies how words are made up meaningful units, like terms and suffixes, are beyond the scope of this book. I'll touch the overlap between two areas commonly known as morphophonomic has been extremely important in the development of phonological theory over the last 50 years. Rule-based theory also include constraint, static, universal of or language-specific statement of possibility in the term segment, shift, or combination. However, since mid-1990s, an alternative approach has developed as part of phonological theory called optimality theory. Phonologists working in optimality theory do not write rules. They express all phonological regeneration using constraints, sometimes something else in a particular environment, which is what rules do. Constraints set out what must happen or what can happen. For example, sound b, d, g, aspiration, voiceless chop are aspirated syllable initially. There are no sequence of s plus a voice chop. Constraint. Constraint of the short sum to work with well when we are dealing only with phonetic and phonology factor, and maybe appropriate uh, alternative to rule in the clearly conditioned type of allophonic variation we have considered and for naturalization. However, they are not quite so helpful when it comes to the interaction of phonology and morphology, where alternation are often not clearly universally motivated, but influence fact about the structure and lexical item of the specific language alone. Then the last one, material, presented by Okta. Okta, time is yours.
Okay, the last material, phoneme system. For instance, some phonologists consider the English velar nasal as a phonemic sequence of and used as the currently was historically even in case where no gah or kah now appears phonetically, hence hang would be analyzed as hang with the alveolar nasal having a velar album before velar plosive and the velar plosive subsequently being deleted after the velar nasal at the ends of syllable. Their perception of ang as a phrase for ang may be injunted by the shape of the stop system in general, where voice and voices, plosives and a distinctive nasal stop go together at the labial b, p, and alveolar d, t, n place of articulation with g, k, ang, providing a parallel set of velars.
Okay, that's all for our material presentation. If other have a question, answer sure. Any other have a question?
Pardon, Diantari, your voice is not clear.
Any other have a question?
I have one quick, I need more explanation about, wait. About defective distribution. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, Fiona. Thank you for your question. And then we will.
Maybe you can give me more example that we have meet
Okay.
in our daily life, the word.
Okay. We explain more about detective distribution. Um, in detective distribution, uh, phonemes we No. Fiona. I want to try to answer your question. In daily life, if huh and there are never to have in the initially what we call in Indonesia dia nggak pernah ada di depan kalimat. Karena itu kembali lagi ke penjelasan kelompok 2 yang waktu ini yaitu economic future. Jadi ini berhubungan erat dengan economic future. Misalkan horse, hours itu H itu jarang banget ditemukan di depan kalimat seperti itu. Misalkan jam, hours itu hanya itu jarang banget kelihatan di depan. And then like that maybe Fiona, and then other one can be help me or have other other reason or other statement time secure. Kalau ada yang mempunyai statement lain atau mungkin dari kelompok 2 waktu ini mempunyai statement lain, bisa mengungkapkannya seperti itu. Oh yeah.
Excuse me, Diantari. I want to make sure that in generalization of phonemes, it will accept or ada pengecualian untuk detective distribution, atau kalau dibilang itu fonem yang tidak sempurna atau rusak, seperti itu ya, distribusi yang tidak sempurna atau rusak.
Bisa dibilang seperti itu, dan ada one example, contoh R, meaning that R appears in red, bright, furry, but not in dark and color. Seperti itu. Jadi kadang suatu huruf itu bisa dibaca dengan jelas, tapi ada juga yang tidak dibaca seperti itu. Ya, seperti itu, Fiona.
Thank you, Di.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Maybe my my answer is not sure, and then the other one.
Studying.
Okay. And the other one have question.
Me.
I have a question.
Me, sir.
Yes, I have one. We can one question because the times can waktunya udah mau habis. Maybe Mahendra.
Okay, thank you, Diantari. So I'm have one question for you about free variation. So, can you give the example about free variation and what the sound had a variation when we produce the sound and what the variation about the sound? Okay, Dita and Okta, thank you.
Okay, Mendra, I want to answer your questions and try. For example, uh, uh, tomato, tomato. In the English generally, tomato, but in short British English, speakers say tomato, tomato, and the word use tomato, and the North American speaker typically say tomato, use y, tomato. It's a different vowel because in two country and the and Southeast British English and North American use the language and different and also the accent and pronunciations. And for example, once again, it's South British English say tomato, and the North American speaker say tomato. Maybe that's all, Mendra. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Okta. So the variation just in the vowel sound make uh, I or yeah, thank you, Okta.
Okay, Mahendra, thank you. Okay, yes, I'm so sorry for Emma, because times is not available. Uh, we finish. We close my presentation today with Brahmasanti. Om Santi Santi
Om
Santi.
Santi Santi Om.
Thank you for the time and see you.
See you.